Okay, so for people that don't know, I made a post on August 14th, basically saying that I'm going to begin making like a post every single week, and you can ask me questions on it, and then I will make a video each week answering the questions, because I think this is a lot more effective than replying to questions on Twitter. I think it's a lot more effective than answering an Ask FM, because I can be a bit more detailed in my answers, because Ask FM usually people won't answer that on their computer, so usually they answer it on their phone, which means that because they're typing on their phone, usually their reply is less detailed. So because I made this a week ago and I went through questions, I forgot most of them now, but I went through questions and I picked out the ones that I think were the best. I uploaded it, and then while it was uploading to YouTube, apparently there was an issue with the upload, and then I had also deleted the video already off my computer, so I don't have the video. So I'm going to remake it right now, and instead of just answering a select few questions, I'm going to try to go over the majority of the questions instead. And yeah, and then immediately after this video ends, I will make the next post, and then I will link it, in the info below, and you can ask questions there and stuff. You don't have to be my friend or follow me on Facebook to leave a comment. I think you can just comment whatever, because all my posts are just public, so there's that. Okay, so Connor asks, what are your tips for becoming a more consistent poker player? I think one of the biggest issues for people playing poker is that they don't see the math in it, and they also don't study it properly when they start up. They think that poker is more so a game of luck, and they think that while there is some math and stuff inside of it, that a lot of stuff is mostly just read-based. And while that can be true to some degree, there's a lot of information that can be learned inside of poker regarding like mathematics and position, and the different games and stuff. No Limit Hold'em, Omaha, Raz, 7-card stud, etc. So I think becoming more consistent is mostly about disciplining yourself emotionally, and then also like studying efficiently, and not just aimlessly going in doing the same thing over and over and over, because I think that's bad. I don't know how to say. I want to say it's Ionis. Asks, do I have a streaming schedule? Mr. Stream today, and what are your future plans? I stream. I try to stream every day, but sometimes there's days where I can't, either because I'm too burnt out, or I'm sick, or I had something else planned, and so I just won't stream. But mostly I try to stream every day. I think last month I streamed like 400 hours or something, so I stream quite a lot. Daniel Tan asks, my friend has 1,000 games played on this account and is still hovering between Silver 2 and Gold 5. He doesn't listen to a word I say aside from playing 5 champions. What can he do to improve? Seriously, you cannot get to this dude's head. He doesn't listen to a word I say. Usually, I mean, if the problem with a person who plays such a high amount of games and they get stuck inside of an MMR bracket is because they either are not doing what they're used to doing every single game, or they're very, very tilt prone. And usually this MMR bracket's the same exact thing. Silver 2 to Gold 5 is roughly the same skill. So by playing a lot and not really deviating too much from what you're doing, you're just going to sway. So for someone that's played that amount, and if he's not listening to you, then you try to find someone or something that he does respect, and you find some way to, get him to see that that person would say something similar to what you're saying. So for instance, if, you're a platinum player and you're arguing that, a mid-champion's really good or something, and then your friend's arguing that, that mid-champion's not good, and then you show him a mid-player that he really likes and he respects, from like LCS or something, or like LCK, playing that champion, not just like one time or something, then maybe it'll convince him to play it. It kind of reminds me of the story about Incarnation, where most EU mids said that Lulu was terrible, and then he got rank 1 using Lulu mid, and apparently that's when like a few of his like friends, like mid laners, etc., started picking up Lulu, even though she was very popular in China and in Korea, and that was like Lulu's rise to power in like the end of Season 3, Season 4. This person's comment's really toxic, so don't listen to that. I don't know how to say your name, I'm so sorry. How do you feel about Vlad in the current meta? Mid or top, builds, tips, and tricks? And do you think Vlad can be a good main at low gold? I think Vladimir I think he's pretty fine. He's not mechanically too complex. A lot of his stuff that becomes complex in the later stages, such as like his ability to do 1v2s and 1v3s, that does require a lot of foresight and understanding of his cooldowns and like when to use pool and stuff, but it's not going to be as noticeable at the lower MMR brackets. So in mid and top, he can be used as a counter to some champions, but for the most part, I think with Fiora coming out, Darius, and I think the changes to some of the other champions in the game, I don't think Vladimir fits too well right now, but I think he can come back at specific moments, like during the year and stuff, depending on if other champions get popular and like how he can be used. I don't think he's a bad champion by any means. I just think he's kind of like a filler, and he's a very niche pick. So yeah. Emmanuel asks, are you willing to be coach of an LCS team? And if the answer is yes, if the opportunity presented itself, would I accept? Coaching an LCS team, I don't want to do it anymore. I recently, not at the time that I originally made this video, I had said that, you know, maybe I would entertain it, but I think the only possible way that I would have gone back to NA, or would go back to NA, is if one of the teams that I talked about would be made, and then I would entertain going back there. But as for any of the current teams or like current rosters, I'm not really interested. NA kind of burnt me out in a lot of ways, not because of NA or because of the players, or well, because of NA, but not because of like the NA players or like the NA teams, etc. But mostly, I didn't really like living there. I didn't like, you know, my fiance didn't really like it. I mean, he liked living in America, but he did not like when we were, you know, living at a team house and stuff, and that bothered him. And so because my health and my emotional well-being is a priority over that, I don't see myself ever returning to an LCS team, at least in the form of a head coach or anything like that. I also don't like the Western mentality that a lot of players and orgs seem to have. I think some orgs are starting to move away from it, but I don't like the system that some people have in place, where it's still very, I guess random would be the best word. Whereas in Korea, there's already like an established, you know, process of how everything goes, and everything kind of operates in a very clean way. I think NA is still like finding itself. Same with EU and other, you know, Western regions, but that's okay. And yeah, so where do I see myself in 5 years? I don't know. Either I will still be in esports in some way, probably not, because I made a video a while ago talking about like me wanting to leave, well, me potentially leaving esports, but not in the sense of quitting games completely. Like, I would still play League and, you know, do whatever, but I would no longer make it a point to produce content or make it a point to tweet or like follow absolutely anything. I would just kind of play League, you know, sparingly. And so if I do remain in esports, it's obviously not going to be in any sort of like a player role or anything like that, even if a new game comes out. I think maybe the only way that I ever return as a player in any sort of way is Warcraft 4, if it does ever come out, or if like StarCraft 3 comes out. I would definitely be interested in playing Warcraft 4 or StarCraft 3. But as for like coaching and stuff, the only way that I will stay coaching currently is if either the Korean team happens, or if something would happen with another region that's very close to Korea, like China or Taiwan or something. I think that's the only way that I would remain. Other than that, I think that I will transition into poker, and, you know, take poker extremely serious and just, you know, move into that and stuff. So, yeah. Patrick asks, is there a LoL equivalent of Magic the Gathering card advantage? Yeah, sure, of course. I think what this question's asking is like how you can use card advantage and MTG and Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon and stuff to kind of lean on your opponent. And, you know, in poker that applies as well, where, you know, you have such a high chip advantage over the enemy, you develop a lot of fold equity, which means that, you know, the judging by how you bet or something, there's a higher chance that the opponent folds. So because of that, I think in LoL, situations like where that occurs is like, say you're in top lane and you're up 2 levels on the opponent, you know, level 7 to level 5, and you have more potions or something. You can take what would be unfavorable trades, you know, like in normal circumstances, if you were both even levels, even items, you know, even amount of potions, even amount of sustain, etc. If you took that trade, it would be bad, you know, because you took 200 damage and the opponent only took 100. But because you're so far ahead already, the opponent taking 100 and you taking 200 benefits you, and I think that's similar to card advantage in some ways, although not directly, but you can definitely think of a lot of stuff that applies to card games and apply it to LoL, mostly revolving around card advantage, actually. But not just card advantage, I think also setting up in, like, chains. I think, so in some ways, the way that I think that some rotations complete are like chains. Mostly Magic players and Yu-Gi-Oh players might know this, I'm not too sure about Pokemon, but chaining and stacking, I think also applies in League. You know, like, okay, if this person goes mid, then we go bot, and, you know, when they show up bot, we do this, and then we know that when we do this, they'll respond like this. And I think that's sort of like stacking and chaining to some degree, and you can think about it as such, but yeah. Okay, Sebastian asks, how necessary do you feel 144 Hz monitor is in League? I don't know too much about this, so I'm not going to give too... like, I can't really give a fair answer. I knew for the longest time that a lot of LCK players capped their FPS at 80, and they also did that in OGN. But in recent times, I think that's been changing, and I'm not really sure why. I do also believe that 23-inch to 24-inch is tournament regulation, so I think, like, if you're ever trying to play competitive in any sense, it's important to use that inch, I guess, monitor. Alright, let's scroll down. Emmanuel asks again... okay, never mind. Okay, Jackson Welt. He asks, are you still planning on being involved in the esports team you've talked about? I'm wondering if that's the Korean team or something. Right now, I'm working as, like, a mercenary, so if anyone, like, contacts me or anything, I offer to do work. But for the most part, I'm not officially joining any team. I do want to make a team, but I'm not, like, 100% sure about, like, how logical that's gonna be and, like, how it can occur and stuff. But I really want to do something inside of Korea. So, yeah. Okay, so what is the prediction for NA and EU semis? I think I made all the right predictions, for the most part, although I don't think I actually predicted EU, except for, like, 2 matches total. But I'm not including the semis, I'm including, like, everything, just for the last few weeks. Number 2, do I think a Western team has a decent shot at making it to the finals of Worlds this year? No, I think Fnatic has, like, a 15 to 20% chance of making, like a deep run, like, maybe, like, deep into the semis, possibly finals. But I don't think that any Western team can make it to finals and then win. What is my prediction for the LCK playoffs? I bet on SKT. So yeah. Who is the best top laner in the world, in my opinion? I only followed results for, like, the last, like, 2.5, 3 months, except for a few games. So I don't have enough intel, nor do I have, like, enough confidence, I guess, to make a statement on this. So I wouldn't feel comfortable making it, so yeah. Okay, Dominic asks, what is the optimal balance for improving constantly in Platinum? What I mean are these things. Playing on my main account, playing on my Smurf account, watching streams and videos. If I have 10 hours a day to be with this game, is it enough to play 5 hours on my main account and then improve by practicing the champions on my Smurf and looking for everything up from the ground? How much am I allowed to watch streams? I think if you're Platinum, you should be, like, watching probably, like, 2 hours and then, like, playing, like, 6. Something like that, like a I don't know, like a 80-20 ratio, basically. I don't know if what I just gave was an 80-20 ratio, but it should be like an 80-20 ratio or like a 85-15 ratio, in terms of, like, researching and stuff versus playing. And I think when you play, it should always just be on your main account, unless you're struggling with issues of like changing champions or something. Then yeah, you can use a lower MMR account to you know, move up and stuff. Also, don't put so much emphasis on like this statement of like platinum. Like platinum, like Diamond 5 through the MMR, to my knowledge, does not recalibrate until Diamond 4. So like Diamond 5 through, you know, like Plat 2 is roughly the same game. Ben asks, do I think Gross Score is good at TF? I think mechanically he's decent at him. I think, however, the way that he builds TF is grossly wrong. No pun intended. And I think the fact that he ignores the basics of why TF is good in solo queue is also very bad. And I'm waiting to coach him to go over that with him and have a discussion with him on that. But other than that, mechanically I think he's okay. I just think the way that he's going about playing TF and his approach to TF and solo queue I think is very poor. So, yeah. I don't know how to pronounce your name, I'm so sorry. Can you show us how to reverse engineer? Sorry for my ignorance. Maybe include some game examples. Reverse engineering is pretty simple. So reverse engineering is basically it's finding the end result and then going backwards, which is something that like 99% of people just don't do. But you don't just go backwards in steps, you go backwards literally by frames, and you see how everything goes, you know, and it turns out and stuff, and why it turns out that way. And then, by going backwards in steps, you ask yourself what could have been done differently at this step. And then you go back again, and then you go, you know, what could be done differently at this step. But then, on top of that, you kind of have to branch off and say to yourself, okay, well, if this gets done instead of this, then what will be the reaction of my opponents here? And then you have to answer that as well. So for each back step you take, you have to answer every single branch off, which is okay. So that's pretty much it, you know. If I was to give like an example, I guess I would prefer to use StarCraft. So to like reverse engineer a build, you would watch the build order backwards to forwards, and then you understand, you know, why it goes that way, and then you play it forwards to end. You know, you play it from start to end, and then you do the same thing that you did backward to forward, except from start to end, and you see if the answers and comparisons kind of line up. Gabriel asks, have I ever considered to handpick a bunch of players and mold them into the next big deal? I know it's a crazy thing, but I think that if you have 5 players like Selfie Corey who are highly talented, motivated, and hungry to improve, you could really make something great. I have what it takes to make the best Western team at the moment, but shit keeps happening to you. Best of luck, and good luck and get well soon. Okay, being able to handpick 5 players is difficult. I do like how you mentioned Selfie and Corey, or Selfie/Corey, because I do think he's probably the most talented, or if he's not the most talented mid currently outside of Korea. I think overall he's like top 5 talent overall, like between every single lane. And I think definitely like he would be a part of the team for sure. And then the other issue is that I would probably include Koreans. So if we're talking about a Western team, then I would probably include 2 Koreans, because unless you get like Forgiven or something, right, for AD carry, or you get, you know, Reckless or something, there's not many Western players that actually have the drive. I actually got into a conversation with a few EU pros, I think 2 days ago, and you know, the argument got not heated, but, you know, basically people were saying their stuff, and then I basically said, you know, you know, these weren't LCS, well, they were like LCS, not LCS, but none of the teams going to World, none of those players, but, you know, I basically said, you know, be grateful that, you know, you were birthed into a region which allows you to be a pro, because if you came to Korea or China, and you had to play 12 to 14 hours a day just to keep up, and, you know, you're struggling to hit this tier on your own server, you wouldn't even be noticed on this server. You know, you would have you'd have a master tier border or something. Like, you wouldn't, like, you know, or you'd be like like, you wouldn't even be considered for, you know, trials and stuff for teams. So let that really sink in, you know, when you're complaining about being able to perform in the EU or NA LCS, or like EU NA Challenger Series or something. because it's just absurd how lazy and, you know, self-centered a lot of the Western players are when it comes to practice. You know, Selfie, for instance, was telling me stories about how when he was in NA, you know, playing 12 to 16 hours a day, some people would tell him to take a break, and he's just like, why? You know, like, why take a break? You know, because if you have the passion, if that flame is burning, you don't want to stop. But if you don't have that and you're continuing to play the game, it's kind of like cashing in on something that you're good at. And this is what I talked about a few times about, you know, some pros like the idea and the glorification of being a pro, but they don't actually like the work that it comes with. And we saw that a lot in StarCraft 2, with the very, very few exceptions to that. But mostly there was a lot of, you know, players that either they could have gone to Korea, but they chose not to because they knew it was harder. Or some Koreans that they opted out of Korea because they're like, I'm just going to get my ass kicked here, but if I go to NA or EU, I'm going to be a god. You know, and so that's basically the mindset that some people have, and it's not very good. What drills can a League player do to improve mechanically? You can practice CSing. You can go for stuff that you know that you're gonna fail, but you have to try. You know, because you have to fail to improve. So you can do, you know, if you're really bad at CSing or something, and you're like silver or gold or something, you can do 2v2 bot lane with, you know, 3 friends. You know, if you're a bad ADC at CSing, you can do 1v1s and practice CSing. However, don't, you know, get into the mindset that, like, if you 1v1, you know, you're a gold player, you 1v1 a diamond friend, you beat him sometimes, doesn't make you diamond at all, because you're playing without a jungler. And even if you include 2 random friends that are playing jungle, it's not really playing jungle, because their roots are skewed. You know they don't have other lanes to go to. You know, like, it's too hard, so you can't do stuff like that. How do I learn the... I'm not fluent at Korean. I taught myself the alphabet, and then what I would do is I would go on Naver, and then I would type in the word followed by Yongro. Okay? And this means in English or by English. So like XX word, you know? So let's just do like, I don't know, like 안녕하세요. Okay, and it means hello, you know, and then also apparently it's such a popular search, it tells you, you know, in Japanese how to say it, it tells you how to say it in Chinese, how to say it in French, how to say it in Spanish, how to say it in German, how to say it in Vietnamese, Russian, Italian, Taeguk, I guess, like, Taeguk? The fuck? I don't know. Wait, what is Taeguk? I don't know what Taeguk is. Indonesia. I don't know. What the fuck? And then yeah, Arab, Mongolia, and this is how I learned. So I would take a word out of solo queue. Okay, so if we come here, right? Let's say I didn't know what this word meant. Shijak, right? So it means like start. Okay, and it can also mean like begin, it can mean, you know, whatever. So you type in Shijak, Yongro, beginning, start, begin, start, embark on, take up. Okay, and then let's say that I didn't know another word. Let's see, Chingu, right here. Okay, so now I type in Chingu. You know, it means friend. You know, so, and then through this, I got a very big vocabulary. My grammar is really, really, really bad. But I can understand a lot, and my vocabulary is pretty big. But I can't speak very well because my grammar is poor. So that's what I did. Okay, Lucas. He asks, can you give any tips on how to become a good coach? I plan on heading this way, helping people improve and get better. You're a great inspiration to me. I guess the answer to becoming a good coach is first deciding what kind of coach you're going to be, because I think there's like 10 different types of coaches. And then from there, you want to make sure that what you're saying is accurate before you begin telling others that. Because if you say something inaccurate and, you know, you have 5 players that follow it blindly, you know, it can lead to poor results and stuff, and you don't want to do that. And then you just kind of follow there, and you have to work on yourself a lot, and you have to work on, like, not just looking at the game, because I think that's what a lot of people fail in, is that they only look at League of Legends and they don't look at stuff from other games, even though a lot of stuff from other games can be applied to League, and you can learn a lot from it. Hidden op champ that nobody gives a, game. I guess Gangplank at the time of this question was he wasn't really hidden op, because I think a lot of Europeans were playing it. I think Zillion is one of the hidden OP champions, and I think Brand. And I've said that for about a month now. I think Zillion mid and support, and I think Brand mid is really good. So yeah, SKT will win Worlds again this year. I think so. Yeah. Will I be coaching a pro team soon? I don't have an answer to that. I mean, when you say coaching, I assume that you mean like on board with the team, in which case I don't know. I want a Korean team basically, but I don't know like if that's all gonna come to fruition and stuff. But in the meanwhile, I do coach some random, like I offer assistance and stuff, as like a mercenary. So 5. Do you know anything about the Brazilian scene? I don't know too much. I think Pain won. I don't know. I don't follow their scene too much. But I almost worked with Keed and Pain, just like remotely, like doing some stuff, but it never ended up happening. What can the smaller regions do to improve and compete with the big names of the game? Well, first off, Riot would have to care about the regions. The fact that pro players are playing on bad ping just means that not only are they not getting optimal practice because the ping's bad, there's actually stuff they cannot practice. Just can't do it because the ping is high. There's certain stuff that you can't do on certain champions if your ping is that high. And so because of that, if you go into a match or something in LCS or a tournament and all of a sudden your ping is 7, there might be a move that you might try to go for, but you've never gotten to really practice it effectively, and so you fail on it because, your ping is not efficient. The other thing that smaller regions don't do is that they don't really have sister teams, and Korean teams don't really have sister teams either, but Korean teams are not they're not withholding information. A lot of Korean pros talk to each other, and a lot of teams are a lot more open during scrims than what Western teams are. My experience was that while some players will talk to each other from other teams, for the most part, they're extremely conservative and they're all hush-hush about everything going on, about, like, their strategy and stuff. And so because of that, and because of how, like, not open they are and how they go about preparing and practicing, I don't think it's very efficient. But, yeah. So that plus also the way that you incorporate talent and stuff, I think is also not being done very effectively. I don't think though that you just scout someone with a high MMR or something off solo queue, but I think that definitely there needs to be some sort of farm academy type thing going on where players can be included into scrim sets sometimes to not only affect the main team's other 4 players that that person's subbing for, but then also allow that player to start learning the game. Because one issue that we saw recently was like Renegades, right? Like they wanted to use Jeebus for their matches, who was a mechanically more sound player than Maple Street, but he didn't understand fives as well as Maple Street, and so because of that they opted to use Maple Street, and it ended up being okay, because Maple Street's not really bad or anything. But, that just kind of goes to show that some players, even though they may be really good, may not be able to perform sufficiently in fives, and that's not good. And that's also because they're not getting chances, so you have to do something about that. Have I ever tried snowmanning without dodging a game? I think I've snowmanned once, and the dodge didn't go through. And I just thought someone else was going to dodge because the second pick was already trolling, and then third and fourth pick already trolled, and I was 5th pick. So I just thought someone was going to dodge. But then it just kind of went through, and rather than snowman, just kind of like stood at fountain and stuff. But yeah. Conway asks, "Hey LS, I've been playing League for a year and a half, and I'm Gold 1 at the minute. I've been watching you and a lot of high-level streamers and following much of the League community for a lot of time. I've also been 1v1ing a high diamond friend of mine a lot, so I'm exposed to like how to play. And I feel like I grasp much of the concepts and what streamers and you discuss. I don't have any trouble talking about them in a talking about them in a vacuum. Yet when I get in game myself, I often go blank. Part of it is admitted anxiety, but even when I'm calm, I'll feel like I can't think either fast enough or well enough when I'm playing. Yet in the same time, if I'm watching myself or someone play, I can see the right path really easy. Maybe this could be biased, but I wanted to ask you if you had any advice or know anything about this. I think a lot of this is there's not anyone that I think can put to use everything that they know in game. And when, reading your question, the thing that I think about, I think of a few things. One is I think about Mewtwo King from Smash Melee, because I don't think anyone knows as much about the game as Mewtwo King. And yet, you have clowns that are like, well then, if he knows everything, then why does he lose? Ha ha ha. And it's just like, you can't put everything that you know to use, especially not if you're not trying to. There might be some things that are extremely difficult and they exist, but you can't pull them off even if you're thinking about it. It would kind of be like a football coach knowing that a play exists, but the football coach himself can't pull it off, or like a magic trick or, a circus act or something. The people that coach the circus people, they know it exists, they know how it's done, etc. They can't do it themselves. And, some people wonder, well, it's a video game, so why isn't that the case? But then they also fail to see that this is not just a video game. There is a lot of skills which are honed, and there are ones that are, naturally with you, that are put into play and put into use. So, you could have an issue with, like, attention, paying attention and stuff, in-game. Like, your brain could maybe run wild. I'm a victim of that. Anxiety doesn't make any sense. I mean, it can, but ladder anxiety I think is pretty foolish in a lot of ways, and I talked about that a lot in verbal sessions. The thing, though, about you mentioning, like, a high diamond friend and you 1v1, that doesn't mean anything, for the same reason that I said earlier about why it doesn't mean anything. Other solution, it's no. The 90 to 110 ping, that can affect you, but only if you're playing, like, really high mechanically intensive champions that have low cooldowns and stuff. You can easily just work around that by playing champions that are not so affected by ping. And so, yeah. You need to just play more, though. Like, Gold 1, Gold 1 through, like, mid-platinum is basically the same game. As long as you think that it's the same game, then you'll improve and stuff. You just gotta stop giving it so much credit. Okay, Abid, I don't know, I think this is like a troll Facebook name, but I may be wrong. And if it's not, then I completely apologize. But what do you think about maining Malzahar to climb out of gold? You can main any champion and climb out of gold for it, man. Am I taking a break at the minute because of, wait. You're taking a break at the minute because your internet and your server is kind of bad. Lost a few games because of delay and lag. Okay. I've been practicing Victor and currently 3-0 in ranked. 3-0 is not a high enough sample size for anything in ranked. Okay, you need to play like 50 games or more to know like if you're really grasping that champion. Maybe I should stick with Malzahar or change. Do not go to Victor. No, don't go to Victor. Malzahar, play it if you really want to. He's mechanically intensive, and a lot of the stuff that he requires in the later stages of the game, if you had it, you wouldn't even be asking this question. Yeah. Nikki Yu asks, could you give a general guide to using teleport efficiently? That's kind of hard. Basically, using teleport, you have to ask yourself, like, if we get a kill here, is that more important than the CS I'm going to eat in lane? And how much damage will my tower take, or how much damage could I apply to the enemy team's tower? Does my opponent have teleport? If we do get the kill, what happens after the kill? You have to think about the big picture. I feel like a lot of people, when they use teleport, they don't use it efficiently, in the sense that they teleport, like maybe they get 2 kills or something, but then when the dust settles, the AD carry and the support have to recall, and then they end up recalling, and then what happens is the top laner that they were ahead on ends up catching up 18 CS, and then got, 400 damage on your tower. And so even though your bot lane got a little bit ahead, the advantage was kind of negated because the enemy top laner, in the same sense, effectively got a kill and an assist indirectly. Not only just in, gold and stuff, but also in XP. So some people, I think, missee how teleport's used, and they think that, just do proper teleport timings. But teleport, I think, is one of the most complex spells in League, and it's hard to answer. Chris, how can someone who has never used the F keys for vision start to learn to use them for vision assistance? You just have to put a sticky note on your computer, and remind yourself to use them. I know that they're really difficult to use, and I know that if you try using them really fast, you're not going to pick up seeing things. Even if you're watching a stream or something and you're watching someone spam the F keys really fast, you're probably not picking it up. But if you get really good at it and you're in game, your eyes already know what to look for. And so when you do spam the F keys, rather than being a spectator seeing the person press the F keys really fast, instead you're actually in the zone of the game and you know what you're looking to see when you press them. So it'll become easier over time. Ethan asked, to what extent do I think the pings affect a player's ability to do well in games and climb? I know that some Korean players rage at like 20 pings, so I wanted to know if you thought it's important. It is, absolutely it's important. I rage at, 30 ping. I complain at 30 ping. I don't like fucking throw a tantrum over it, but ping is extremely important. It's also because it's not fair. If you have a top laner and he has 150 ping and he's up against someone with 20 ping, how does that person win the lane? You can't win the lane unless like the matchup's in favor of you or you get like a lot of jungler assistance. That ping amount is way too high because it does not just affect your ability to click and make decisions, it also affects your ability to execute combos. If you have 300 ping or something, or 250 ping, maybe you're playing cross server, and you go to, flash EQ ignite, maybe your flash goes through, your E goes through, your Q doesn't go through, and then your ignite goes through, and you're just like, well, that's not cool. So ping matters a lot. What lane is Yorick best played in? I think Teemo. Yeah, I don't think Teemo can do anything to Yorick. Because you can just ghoul his mushrooms, and he can't do anything to beat you, sustain-wise, and he can't kill you. So we'll just say, unless you mean, like, top jungler mid, in which case it's top. Did I watch any of the international? No, I just followed the results, because I always follow, like, results of sports, even if I don't really watch them. How come I don't see you coaching any bronze players? That's because, generally, I refuse to not refuse, but generally, the coaching of bronze players is always the same. It's sort of like, imagine I was a piano teacher, and I had a person come in who, they know piano keys to some extent, but they don't actually know. Like, if I ask them to name all the keys, they can't. The same way that if I ask a bronze player to name me basic fundamentals to League, they won't. And if they say that they do, they're bullshitting, because if they actually understood anything, you just would not be bronze. So, with that being said, it's basically like you have to teach them the super basic fundamentals. You have to teach them, like, it's kind of like typing on a keyboard. This is where Q is, this is where W is, this is where E... And that's how coaching with bronze players basically goes. It's basically just telling them part 1, chapter 1 of a book, and it's really boring, it's extremely repetitive, and, there's no reason to really put any videos of that up on YouTube. Yeah. Okay, Vic Wen asks, how did I start coaching? When did you start becoming popular? Did your work ever affect your health? Did your life ever interfere with your work? And if you can go in depth. When I started coaching, well, if we were talking about, like, original coaching, I guess it goes back to card games, because then technically I started in Magic, but I coached a lot in StarCraft 1 and StarCraft 2. And then in League, I guess, the way that I started coaching was, I was playing Heroes of the Storm one day, and someone asked me to coach them in Italy, in top lane. And so I coached them, and the video went up on Reddit, and it kind of blew up, and then from there, it kind of just took off in League, and I got messages from a few pro players, and then I got messaged by SHC, and they asked me if I would be interested in coaching their pro team, and so that's how that happened. Did it ever affect my health? Absolutely it does. There was a point where I was coaching 18, 20 hours a day, trying to make, a lot of money, and that was last summer, because of the situation that I was in, and I had to leave SHC temporarily, before rejoining them, so I was gone from them for a few weeks. My coaching has affected my health in, recent times and whatever, because I'll stress over certain stuff, or, I have appointments that are, at conflicting time zones, and I don't really get much sleep in, and I feel pretty sick, and it's just not very good. Did my life ever interfere with my work? Absolutely. I don't think I was ever able to ever put even 50% at any game that I got to play, including StarCraft 1, because I was always dealing with something going on in my life. In StarCraft 2, you know, in Korea and stuff, you can watch my reflections, or I think there's a video here on my Twitch that goes over some of the issues that I faced in terms of money and stuff, and so because of that, I was never able to do too much. And then in League, you know, I eventually, you know, my engagement and everything, eventually I began prioritizing my emotional well-being and the well-being of my fiance and stuff over that of the game, and so that actually led to me turning down some jobs and in NA and EU, you know, before Gravity, and it, you know, that's why I didn't go to EU LCS for MYM and stuff, you know, in Germany last year. Not just because of him, but also because of legal obligations that I had inside of Korea, but yeah. Yeah. Zalfa asks, I have played more than 6,000 games in ranked alone since the started League in early Season 2. I'm stuck in absolute, wait, I still suck a lot. I've never been higher than Gold 1 and barely made it to Gold 5. What do? You probably, like, you probably think you know the game, but you don't. And so you have to die to yourself, in the sense that you have to just accept that you're really bad, and all those 6,000 games, you have to just wipe them off and just start with a clean slate, and you have to do stuff while being okay with losing LP and, like, losing just game after game after game. And then you'll improve. What can you practice in customs? You can practice trading. Yep, is what this person said. You can practice trading. You can practice warding. You know, perfect pixel warding. You can practice flashing every 5 minutes. However, we here at Riot Games do not believe that a sandbox mode would be, you know, effective, because we believe that, you know, if you perform poorly in a ranked game, instead of someone telling you to go play normals, they would tell you to play sandbox, and we know exactly how much that just would hurt your feelings. So, unlucky there. Julian asks, I recently started playing Shyvana Jungle. Which smite should I use in which situation? Always use Chilling Smite with Exhaust. Look up XJ9 for the masteries and the runes and stuff. I'm gonna begin skipping around a little bit. Jan, I'm gonna assume is how you pronounce this. If you're building a Zeal on 80 Fizz Aurelia Jax, do you prioritize the Dagger or the Brawler's Grubs? You prioritize Dagger, because the crit doesn't, yeah, basically what Ivan's saying here. The crit doesn't matter too much, and the attack speed really matters, so always prioritize the Dagger. Thoughts on Zeke's? By Yos? Zeke's is really good, only in specific situations. You don't do it in every single situation, but yeah. How can you begin improving your macro game? I think you should look at macro concepts which do not pertain to League, because I think that a lot of teams, even the best ones in the world, fail at macro concepts. You know, not because they're not, you know, practicing it or learning it, but I think macro is affected when not everyone's on the same page for the macro decision. And so I think it's kind of like it has to be a group effort, and everyone has to kind of be on the same page in regards to understanding it, not just executing it, because anyone can know that it exists, but the point is to understand it so that you can manipulate it to, you know, benefit you. Okay. Mario, I think he's trolling, but I'm, you know, and delusional. How do I battle Dunning-Kruger and a narcissistic mindset? I peaked at Diamond 5 after 6 weeks of properly playing and just fuck around in gold. I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, you say it yourself. Like, you're probably not going to change even if I say anything, so, you know, what's the point? But all I can say to you is Diamond 5's nothing to brag about, so, yeah. Sam, how do you carry a game as AD carry when top and mid feed really hard and you aren't that much ahead? Is it something like split pushing? Even if you don't have an escape, it happens to me every game. Well, first off, it does not happen to you every game, okay? Using math alone, you know, we can determine that as long as you are not trolling, it is impossible for the enemy team not to actually have a troll more than your team. Okay, so through that you can climb. But usually when people say that it happens to them every game, usually they're actually toxic. in some ways, if this is like lower elo or something. The problem with AD carry and solo queue is that very few can actually carry a game if their top and mid get absolutely obliterated. But the way that you're going to do it is by basically using your top and mid as meat shields and taking advantageous fights in a defensive manner. Split pushing can be effective in very, very few situations, but mostly AD carry has one of the hardest times carrying in solo queue. But, yeah. Okay. Noble. He says, I'm bad at everything. First time playing League, still climbing to 30. Need tips for being an op jungler. Can't afford your coaching, so it would be helpful if you watch my profile. Not going to look at your profile if you're still climbing to 30. Just watch videos, watch streamers, and watch a lot more than you're playing, or watch an even amount. So either go 50-50 or go 20-80 in terms of playing watch. And then from there, eventually get to a point where you're going to swap into 95-5, and you just kind of grind stuff out the same way that a player working on their fundamentals would in, you know, regular sport. Dylan leads. Best way to get better, not climb. To watch streams and then try to replicate mechanics or things that you're seeing players much better than yourself doing, and don't be afraid to make a mistake and mess up. Because I think that's what ends up happening with a lot of people, is they won't, you know, do anything like that. So, okay. What do I do as jungle Pantheon when I or my team is behind? I get into this bad habit of trying to force fights by trying to start team fights with my ult, and it just gets me killed. Should I farm or try and well, okay, so if you fall behind early game, let's say that you get invaded, you get killed and stuff, what you want to do is you want to become extremely gank potent. Like, you want to just kind of run around, and you want to force the enemy jungler to basically not be able to farm, or you want to apply a ton of pressure to the enemy lane so that your laners temporarily get ahead, and by having yourself run around a lot, you're also acting as a living ward, even though you're not Evelyn or whatever. But because of Pantheon's base movement speed, and if you have like early boots and you're running MS Quints and like the movement speed masteries and stuff, it's extremely difficult for junglers to keep up with you, especially when you get 6. And then, once you get your laners far ahead, then what you want to do is go into a farming mode where you counter gank everything, and you put yourself in positions that you can simultaneously farm and provide assistance to a lane. So say, like, you know that bot lane might get ganked. Well, then you farm golems, and you just kind of wait at golems, and you wait for the enemy jungler to show up, you counter gank them. And then what you do is use your ultimate as like a god finger. So, like, if your ally messes up during a 1v1 or something, you ult. You know, if your ally gets ganked, you ult. You know, always just try to use your ult as like a god finger, if you get behind. Don't try to force stuff. What Wes asks, what is my upmo well, basically my favorite candy. Favorite candy. Oh, this is hard. God. I want to say it's Twix. Twix, or there was this, like, Halloween, like, purple and white skeleton lollipop that was only come out in Halloween edition in Rhode Island and Massachusetts, and Connecticut at least. I don't know if they had it in other states, and I really liked that too. But, yeah, I guess Twix. If it's not Twix, then probably, like, a fast break, I think, was what it's called, or like a fast. It was made by I think Reese's or something. Fast break was really good, but only if it was chilled, like cold. Okay. Tom, you once stated a good way to improve is to watch high Korean challenger player play. I find it difficult to learn from it. What do I look for? Watching Faker play, still not understanding much. I mean, if you're watching Faker play and you're not getting anything out of it, then I think it basically speaks to the fact that you're not actually watching League, you're watching a fighting game simulator. Because if you cannot take from, you know, his movements and his CS and his positioning and his discipline and lane emotionally, anything out of that, then you just don't know what you're even looking at. However, do not watch Korean junglers play. because Korean junglers, there's nothing like them overseas, and even Koreans that go overseas, they get worse, at solo queue. So, with maybe the exception being Rush, but he's like a solo queue god, so don't don't look at that stuff. But yeah, just a second question: how do you deal with your tilt? I tilt really bad, man. Toxicity and saltiness. I just keep playing though. Like I just hit, play again and stuff, because you have to basically understand, like, either you recognize that you're the issue that day, like you can feel it, like, okay, I'm playing bad, these games, and maybe sometimes you'll win, even though you know that you're playing really bad and you can feel it. And then other times you'll lose, but at least when you're losing and you can feel that it's you, like mechanically, like making mistakes and stuff, then it's easy to fix, because that means that eventually you're going to snap out of it. If, you're losing games a lot because of, like, trolls and stuff, and, like, someone's just AFK or someone's feeding or something, that's all too common in Korea, and what you do is just keep playing. I think one of the biggest issues that a lot of people face is, they work a 9 to 5, and they get out of work, and they come home, they eat dinner, they shower, etc., and they play 2 games of League or something. And so if you only play 2 games, and then after 8 games total, spread across 4 days, you experience trolls in 5 out of 8 of them, it's gonna seem like you're getting trolled all the time, but in reality, you're not. You're barely playing. 8 games is nothing. That's sometimes like half of what a pro puts in, into solo queue. So, yeah. But I hope that answers your question. Let's see. I'm just gonna now go over ones that have like comments, and some of the other big ones. How does one start Elo? Well, I'm not gonna tell you this, but yeah. Do we have to learn a lot of matchups to improve how to know to what? Well, no, that's what happens at the later stages, like when you start getting, high diamond, master tier, etc. Then understanding the minutia of, all the matchups and stuff really goes for helping you improve as a player. Have I thought about creating my own school of coaching? I thought about this a while back, but I don't think I'm gonna do it, so yeah. Suzo asks, well, Nick, I'd love to know what does a coach like you make to improve a team like Gravity? What do you focus on more? You said want something that sounded mostly like rotations, but you don't work as well on poor mechanics, pick ban phase. That's not true. Pick ban phase, I think the method of going about pick and ban that I brought to Gravity was very similar to how some Korean teams go about it. My core focus in all types of coaching when it comes to 5s is macro. I do not care about micro, I do not care about cheese, I do not care about, early game shenanigans and stuff. I mean, I care about, like, lane swaps and stuff, okay, but that's a macro concept. What I don't care about is, like, minor skirmishes and minor stuff like, ward here at this time. Like, I care, but not to the level that I care about making sure that my players, if they reach 35 minutes and the game is even, they just know how to move across the map and do everything way better than my opponents, or their opponents, my opponent's team, whatever. That's my core focus, and that comes from StarCraft, because I think the greatest approach in anything is a superior offense via defense. So, and it goes to that saying, or that quote that I had from one of those videos, that an unstoppable force is weaker than an immovable object. So, yeah. Yeah. So, that's okay. In terms of priority, I think macro, and then I think early game openings, and then I think pick ban, and then I think micro, I think is the most important. Michael Torres asks, what do I think about Lissandra? Do you think she will be back in the pro scene? I think she can. I think just people have gotten a little tired of her. So it's not, the best thing for her to do right now. But she did just recently get buffed, but yeah. What? What do I think of sacrificing 1 quint for a CD/level quint on AP mids to get 40% CDR with Ionians? What? You get 5% from masteries, you get 15% from scaling, and then you get 20% from Morello or Athenes. Alternatively, you go scaling APs, and you get Ionian with Morello or Athenes. And you get 4. I don't understand this question. Let's see. Francisco asked, what do I think most people lack to reach Master Challenger levels? I've seen too many players have relatively high KDAs and win ratios, yet fail to reach anything more than Platinum. Now let's say someone has 60% win rate in 100 games with X Champion, being winning the only condition there is to reach high elo. Do you think that person, as long as she grinds ranked games really hard, will eventually reach Master or even Challenger? I think anyone decent who is, you're in the upper tier of Diamond and stuff, I think you can reach Master by following a certain guideline. I do not believe, especially with how time is moving on and stuff, that anyone can reach Challenger. I also don't think that, well, I think a lot of people, like 90% of people, can reach Diamond 5 if they really work for it. I think Diamond 5 is relatively easy. The way that I like to talk about it is that Bronze to Diamond 5 is like the Ragnarok XP system, which is level 1 through 96, and then I think Diamond 5 to like Diamond 3 is 96 to 97, which contains double the amount of experience needed to go from 1 to 96, and then I think to go from Diamond 3 to like Master is like 97 to 98, which contains 4 times as much information that you need to go from 1 to 96, and then from finally 98 to 99, which was the peak level, that's like Master Tier to Challenger, it contained, all the XP required from 1 to 98. And I think that's how it goes. But yeah, to answer your question about one person playing one champion and doing it, yes and no. Some people will, some people won't. It depends on how they're playing that champion. There's a lot of one-trick ponies. They have, like, you could be like the worst Master Yi player in the world. Here, let me show you him, okay? I'll show you the worst Master Yi player in the entire world. Like, you can play 3,000 games on one champion and ignore basic fundamentals of that champion, and you'll never go anywhere. Like this person, okay? He hovers between Diamond 1 and Diamond 5 consistently, sometimes even falling as low as Platinum MMR, okay? And I've never met a Master Yi player in my life who either did not build Feral Flare or did not build Sated. Okay? Master Yi's passive and Wuju style, okay, scale with attack speed because it enables you to do true damage, which is more damage than raw damage will ever give you. So you can either choose to be like this, in which case you're never going anywhere, or you can actually use your brain and look up pro builds and actually look at why your champion is doing what they're doing. So, there's that. So, yeah. So, let's see. Timothy Murphy asks, why do I have a 61% win rate on a champ over 400 games only this season, and I have a poverty KDA? That doesn't mean anything. So if you have a 61% win rate over 400 games, then, like, I don't even get, like, why this is, like, a question. So what, you're, like, 270 and 130 or something? Or, like, no. It's even worse than that. Hold on. Jesus Christ, my brain is, like, failing right now. I am so sorry. So you have 244 wins, and then you have 156 okay, so first off, your champion probably won a lot more when it first started, which is common with most champions unless you start it at your main MMR. What that means is you might start out having like a 90% win rate or something. Like, like you have 40 games and it's ridiculous win amount, okay? And then as time goes on and you begin moving closer and closer to your actual MMR, the win rate starts beginning to fall. And yeah, also having that many games, if you're not like really disciplined or something, your KDA of course is going to fall because you're going to have games where you go 0-12-0, just because of tilt and toxicity and other stuff. And that affects your overall global KDA, so it's probably that. Okay, yeah, Emilio Cliff. Hi LS, I found one of Apto accounts, Cordoba, which went from Plat to Diamond in Season 4. Champion pool in Season 4 was different from his normal. I don't think that was actually Apto's account. A lot of Korean pros share IDs, and a lot of Korean pros get IDs to experiment on and do certain stuff. Stephen Bayless asks, what runes and masteries would I take for Pantheon jungle? 9 AD reds, or you can do 8 AD reds, 1 crit chance red, even though he gets 100% crit chance, but the 1 crit chance is kind of, you know, like novelty. 5 flat armor for 4 scale, or no, yeah, 5 flat armor, 4 scaling HP, or no, 5 scaling HP, 4 flat armor, yeah. And then you can get 9 scaling CDR, 2 AD quints, and 1 MS quint. And yeah, 2253 for his masteries. Okay, and let's just go over these last few. How do I apply pressure on the map as a mid laner? You can do so by going into the Fog of War. You can do so by, you know, rushing, boots and prioritizing speed and mobility and stuff when you're ahead in the lane. You can do so by buying a lot of wards so that you can't get ganked and your jungler has a lot of intel, and so does your top lane and bot lane. That's what you do. Okay. Hey, I'm Platinum 5, I usually main ADC, but I feel like I can't carry my games like I used to. I don't know if it's because of my current meta. At the moment, I only play Trist for map pressure with my E. I used to play Graves earlier this season, then switched to Jinx, respectively 55% win rate and 60%. Do you think I should change role? No, don't change role, just keep playing. You know, if you're not trolling, and even if you only have a 55% win rate, you will climb. You know, even if it takes you a little while, so that's okay. Hung Henry Muller asks, if I kill my lane opponent and I'm low on HP and mana, I can't really push the wave out, but it's pushing lightly in his direction. Should I recall immediately, or should I try to push with auto attacks? In both cases, I find myself coming back in lane and losing a lot of CS, because the first case, he gets a nice freeze. Okay, so if the opponent goes into a freeze situation, you either have one of two options. If they're not too far ahead, you recall immediately and you buy extra potions, and you take an unfavorable trade to break the freeze. So that's one way to go about it. The other is you get jungler assistance to break the freeze. The other is that depending on who you are, you can try to farm your jungle camps and you wait for the freeze to break, and then depending on what level you are, you can try and go roam. Because in some cases, a lot of players, oftentimes I've seen them do this, is they execute a freeze and they hold the freeze for an incorrect amount of time, and what happens is the top laner roamed too much, or he did too much for his team, and even though you're sitting there still freezing the lane and you think you're ahead, it doesn't matter because your teammates dropped the ball. And because they dropped the ball, the enemy top laner has now recuperated, and he's also applied an equal amount or greater amount of pressure than your freeze did to him. And so that's what you do. But yeah, so that's what you do. Okay, so like I said, I will make the next post. Hold on, I just saw this. Eli Edwards. If Rito gods gave you the power to make one champion, what would they be? What role? What abilities? What would their capabilities be? Etc. I think if I could make a champion, it would probably be like a mid laner, and I think it would be like I don't know, like something that could become multiple champions or something, or like maybe like the ultimate would be like Shang Tsung or something, like from Mortal Kombat. Like you can use your ult like on an opponent or an ally, and you can get that ultimate. Like that becomes your ultimate, and then you can, you know, I don't know, you can get rid of it again by, no, I don't even know. I guess, yeah, once you cast it on someone, that becomes your ultimate. So I think that's a little bit difficult because, like, let's say that, you know, you want the ultimate of the ADC and you're the mid laner. You have to go out of your way to get the ult, and then maybe the ult that, you know, if you want it, it's kind of like it creates like a destiny bond, and as long as you kill or get an assist on that champion, maybe you get the ultimate, or something like that. But it would probably be some like ghost-related champion. You know, like something that can like shapeshift and it's like a ghost, and I don't know. Yeah, that'd be interesting. So, yeah, and so I think that's it. So okay, like I said, I will make the next post. So yeah. Okay, and thanks everyone for watching, and the post will be linked in the info below. Alright, bye. Okay.